I often drift back to those Saturday mornings in the kitchen, where the laughter of my son, David, filled our home with warmth and joy. As I pulled out the heavy mixing bowl, flour billowed into clouds, swirling in the air like the laughter we shared. David would stand by my side on a chair, his little hands eager to help. I remember his eyes lighting up as he tossed chocolate chips into the bowl, his giggles punctuating the air like sweet notes. Baking cookies together became our cherished ritual. Each moment felt sacred, filling our home with a magic only we could create. The kitchen smelled of melted chocolate and baked delights, our laughter mingling with the comforting sound of the oven timer. Those moments etched themselves into my heart, a testament to the bond between a mother and her child. Holidays brought more joy. Thanksgiving dinners exploded with laughter, filled with the aroma of roasted turkey and spiced pumpkin pie. Family gatherings transformed our table into a vibrant tapestry of love. I took such pride in each dish I made, envisioning their smiles and imagining how my efforts nurtured our family. These gatherings were not mere events, they were expressions of my unwavering devotion. With every birthday party I organized, every present I wrapped with care, I wove my identity into the very fabric of their lives. I had put my career on hold, choosing to be the foundation for David's dreams. My sacrifices became invisible threads holding us together, but with each passing year, I began to feel their weight more heavily. The laughter that once resonated brightly started fading behind shadowy corners. I wanted to believe my contributions mattered, that I would receive a nod of gratitude for the late nights, the endless grocery runs, and the dedication I poured into their lives. Yet my heart ached for all my efforts I felt unnoticed, a mere backdrop to the vivid scenes of their joy. In those family gatherings, I would glance around and find David glowing with laughter, but there I would remain in the cozy backdrop, yearning for reciprocation. As he moved deeper into his own life, I often felt lost in the swirl of their collective warmth. My spirit dulled beneath the surface of his smile. Though David continued to grow and thrive, a quiet ache persisted within me. I longed for him to turn to me, to recognize the depths of my love. I cherished those memories but felt them slip into the past like the last light of day. Would the reality of my sacrifices ever resonate with my family as it once did? Beneath layers of cherished memories, I sensed the shadows looming, casting doubt upon the bright moments I held dear. I wished for the words of gratitude that felt just beyond my reach. With every passing day, the silence grew heavier, leaving me to ponder if my contributions were merely forgotten threads in their lives. As I closed my eyes and reflected on those moments, a bittersweet ache nestled deep within me, a yearning for acknowledgement, a desire for connection, waiting to ignite and reclaim its rightful place in the love I had given so freely. 2 years had passed since David graduated from college, and suddenly, my home transformed more rapidly than I anticipated. It all began the day he brought Amelia to meet me. I still remember the fresh scent of spring mingling with the aroma of fresh flowers in the garden as David walked through the door, his face beaming with pride. "Mom, this is Amelia," he said, motioning toward her. She stepped forward, effortlessly charming in a soft pastel dress that framed her figure perfectly. I was caught off guard by the sudden surge of affection he had for her, his eyes alight with excitement. It reminded me of the little boy he used to be, filled with joy at the simplest things. Amelia greeted me with a warm embrace that felt genuine. She exuded charisma, her laughter bright and infectious. For a fleeting moment, I felt a wave of hope ripple through my chest. Perhaps she would be the daughter I never had, a kindred spirit, someone to share the weight of family traditions with. However, the air soon shifted. Subtle changes emerged that I couldn't ignore. At the first family dinner, Amelia sashayed into the kitchen as if she'd always belonged, offering unsolicited suggestions about the lasagna. "Oh, Helen, I just sprinkle a bit more cheese on this layer. It'll make it extra special," she suggested with a bright smile, performing her attempted enhancement with a lightness that left me unsettled. Something tightened in my chest as I paused, knife poised midair. I wanted to respond. I wanted to remind her that I had spent years perfecting that recipe and that it had been David's favorite since he could chew. But the words stuck somewhere in my throat. I forced a smile while my heart constricted, like a flower withering in the shadow of another. At first, I rationalized her behavior. She was young, eager to impress. Interpreting her enthusiasm as excitement about becoming part of our family offered a fleeting comfort. We carried on in this manner for a few weeks until I began to recognize the telltale patterns of criticism interwoven into her compliments. "Your taste in decor is, so unique," Amelia remarked one afternoon while rearranging the floral centerpiece on my dining table, her tone dripping with a combination of politeness and a subtle jab. I felt the prickle of embarrassment bloom across my cheeks. "Have you thought about more modern options?" That familiar tightness in my chest returned, this time accompanied by an unsettling burn in my throat. I chuckled nervously, hoping if I brushed it off it would disappear into the ether. Perhaps I was just too old-fashioned for her tastes. But what stung more than her words was the transparent change in David's demeanor. He laughed along with her, their shared jokes ringing in the air, while I stood stuck in the background, an island in my own home. As weeks turned into months, the facade of charm began to crack, revealing a chilling undercurrent I couldn't ignore. Amelia often made barbed comments veiled in laughter, how I could hardly keep up with new trends or how I should upgrade our family traditions. Each sly remark slashed a little deeper, an insidious whisper gnawing at my heart. I started to question my own instincts. Was I overly sensitive? One afternoon, I found myself in the garden, hands deeply buried in soil, tending to my cherished roses. The bright colors swayed gently in the breeze, their beauty graceful and relishing the sunlight, but I felt anything but lovely inside. Each pruning of the thorny branches mirrored my internal struggle, battling feelings of inadequacy. I felt as if Amelia's very presence was like a shadow over my flowers, stealing their vitality. I tried to shake off my dark feelings, convincing myself she was simply adjusting to a new family, and perhaps part of her process included changing things up. Still, with every gathering, I couldn't shake the sense of unease as I watched her revel in conversations, her laughter ringing out as if it belonged solely to her. David's eyes sparkled with admiration when he was with her, yet when he looked at me, a shadow of concern flickered across his face. With each orchestrated family dinner, I watched Amelia take charge, her bright tone soaring over my quiet reassurance. I longed for David to acknowledge the subtle shifts, but his passive presence felt like a veil pulled tight over the truth. In conversations where jokes were made at my expense, I wanted more than ever for him to stand up for me. It was as if I were fading into the background, their cheerful banter swirling around me while I retreated within myself. The truth was painfully clear. I began to feel invisible in my own home. Amelia, with her dazzling charm, slowly encroached upon my domain. Each day became a new landscape of triggers, igniting nothing but insecurities I thought long buried. Through all the strained dynamics, I tried to convince myself to keep an open heart, yet the heavy feeling of isolation crept in. like shadows nesting in a once vibrant garden. I felt trapped, caught between the duties of a loving mother and the suffocating sensation of being pushed aside. What was I to do? Could I voice my discomfort? Or perhaps I was making too much of Amelia's perceived slight. Mercy folded in on itself while I grappled with my identity, a mother displaced. I often found solace in my memories and the love I felt for David, but each smile now carried layers of confusion that tightened my throat. As the weeks turned into a blur of family dinners filled with tension, I knew something had to change. My heart ached for David's acknowledgement, and as the days turned into nights, I sensed a storm brewing, a moment that felt inevitable as shadows loomed ever closer. One evening, as I stood at the sink, washing the dishes from yet another, seemingly endless dinner with Amelia and David, the weight of suffocation pressed more heavily on my chest than ever before. I could feel the water dripping from my fingers, the sound echoing in the silence that had settled over the kitchen like a fog. My thoughts swirled chaotically. They were heavy with insecurities and fears, overwhelming me as I gazed out the window. The vibrant sunset bathed the garden in hues of gold and crimson, but inside I felt like I was withering away. As I wiped my hands on a dish towel, I caught my reflection in the darkened window. I barely recognized the woman peering back at me. My hair was pulled back into a tight bun, a style I adopted to maintain an air of order amidst the chaos, but here I was, feeling anything but orderly. I thought back to the vibrant, confident woman who had once filled this house with laughter and warmth. Was she really gone? Would I allow Amelia to erase my existence entirely? No, I whispered softly to myself, the words forming a resolute mantra. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. The gravity of that statement settled deep within. It was a reminder that I had a voice and value that surpassed any criticism. I straightened my back, feeling a flicker of strength ignite behind the dull ache in my chest. I made my way to the living room, where the family photos hung on the walls, poignant reminders of love and connection. Each image depicted moments of pride, happiness, and devotion that I had crafted over the years. As I gazed at the faces, David beaming at his graduation, my hand resting on his shoulder, I felt the bond tugging at my heart again, both comforting and painful. That connection was worth fighting for, and I realized that I had to reclaim my dignity, not just for myself, but for David. I didn't want him to grow up blind to the love that surrounded him or to mistake my silence for acceptance. And so, I began to plan. I thought about boundaries and how I could carve out a space for myself. Up until now, I had let Amelia's presence dictate my behavior. I reflected on the subtle undermining I had experienced. Each sarcastic comment and glance stole pieces of my confidence. Yet, as I mulled it all over, I felt emboldened by the gathering storm within me. I didn't have to live in the shadows. I could bring my feelings into the light. My plan unfolded slowly, like the petals of a rose blooming one by one. I began with small shifts, using humor to deflect Amelia's jabs and reclaiming moments during our gatherings. I decided that I would no longer let the tide of conversation sweep me away. If she wanted to make suggestions about the lasagna, I would calmly respond, reiterating that I had been making it for years. If you want to add a touch of your own, go right ahead, I would say with a smile, my purpose focused. But remember, my recipe holds a lot of history. I envisioned breaking from the roles they had assigned me, letting Amelia know that I was not to be disregarded. I practiced in front of the mirror, every phrase rehearsed. The first time, it would be daunting, but I would remain determined. Then came the bigger part of my plan. I needed to bridge the gap with David. He had to know how I felt, not just because I craved validation, but because I wanted him to witness the shifting climate in our home. Putting things into motion, I began to create safe spaces for open conversations. I made a habit of spending moments alone with David while he was running errands or taking a break. Over coffee, I approached him gently, careful to steer the conversation toward my concerns without pointing fingers. David, I've been feeling a bit lost lately. I'm wondering if you've noticed the changes around here. I'll never forget the way he furrowed his brow, his deep-set eyes indexing with concern. "What do you mean, Mom? I thought everything was fine," he replied, his voice tinged with confusion. "That's just it," I said, breath tight in my throat. "I feel like my input isn't valued the same way it used to be. I often feel invisible in my own home." Would he understand? I needed him to see and maybe even defend the love I so freely gave for years. With every word I spoke, it was as though I was setting out pieces on a chessboard, waiting for the right moment to make my move. And in that moment, amidst the clutter of our lives, my heart hammered against my ribs, a mixture of fear and hope dancing within. I pictured a future where I could stand boldly, proud and self-assured, nestled within the fabric of our family tapestry. My spirit ignited by the promise of change, I resolved to move forward. "I want you to understand, David," I continued. "I treasure our memories and I don't want to lose myself in this new dynamic. Your happiness matters to me, but so does my voice. I hope you can see that." My heart raced as I awaited his answer. Would he hear my plea? My courage felt both exhilarating and terrifying, yet I was determined to reclaim my dignity bit by bit. Little did I know that as I embarked on this journey, the storm I sensed was already brewing. This would be the catalyst for a fate I could have never anticipated. As days passed after my conversation with David, a delicate tension filled the air, but I felt a budding resolve. I continued nurturing my plan, but my instincts urged me to dig deeper. What did Amelia really think of me? I needed to observe, to uncover the layers behind her charming facade. During our family dinners, I strained to catch pieces of dialogue, subtle gestures, and fleeting expressions that revealed more than words could say. Every glance exchanged between David and Amelia seemed like a coded message I had yet to crack. Their inside jokes felt like a linguistic lock, with only the two of them possessing the key. I often caught David's laughter rising higher, his smile wide as he leaned closer to her. Meanwhile, I stumbled into a routine, baking for the family. Whiffs of buttery goodness mixed with scents of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the house, a sensory motion meant to anchor me, to remind me of moments when laughter wasn't veiled in discomfort. Each time Amelia popped in, anytime she graced my kitchen uninvited, I seized the opportunity to observe her interactions, her body language speaking volumes. "Mom, these cookies are incredible," David would exclaim while reaching for the plate. I'd smile, an inward glow lighting up my chest. But then I noticed the slight curl of Amelia's lips, a flicker of annoyance. "Sure, but maybe try adding a pinch of sea salt next time. It really elevates desserts," she offered, her voice dripping with thinly veiled superiority. I would nod, pushing down the bitter taste in my throat. Though her words were presented as suggestions, I could see the edge behind her smiles, meanings layered like frosted decorations on my sweets. From that point forward, each family gathering morphed into an investigative mission, a labyrinth I needed to navigate. I began documenting behaviors, taking note of how often David chose Amelia's side over mine, how her criticisms laced through what I thought were harmless jokes, painting me as the villain in my own story. I felt a growing awareness that this dynamic was no accident. I scoured my memories, revisiting moments filled with light, now overshadowed by these new realities. On several sleepless nights, I lay awake, heart racing, piecing together the unfolding narrative. My sacrifices, my love, they appeared to pale in Amelia's bright presence like a dim candle flickering in the wake of a roaring fire. One afternoon, armed with my collected thoughts, I reached out to an old friend, Claire, a woman whose wisdom had always guided me. Over steaming cups of chamomile, I opened my heart, recounting the tightening grip of loneliness. Claire listened intently, then leaned in closer, her voice gentle yet firm. "You can't let her take your place, Helen. You have to confront this." As I absorbed her words, I felt a sudden clarity. Claire's encouragement resonated, empowering me to dive deeper into my investigation. I could gather more than just emotional evidence. I had to confront the emotional gaslighting that was creeping into my life. I devised an idea that swirled in my mind, a gathering among friends and family at my home, a casual occasion for everyone to express their thoughts in a safe space. My hope was to create moments where Amelia could not retreat behind pointed jokes or veiled comments, where David could witness the truth of our dynamics openly. As the day approached, I oriented myself toward preparations, ensuring every detail sparkled with vibrancy. I spent hours arranging flowers, elegant tulips, and bright daisies that would grace the dining table, evoking warmth. Dishes simmered on the stove, inviting aromas filling every corner of the house. I wanted to ensure that love permeated the air. I wanted my sanctuary to ring loud with joy. When the evening finally arrived, the laughter of familiar faces filled the room. Yet the moment I caught Amelia's eyes flitting to David made my pulse quicken with anxiety. The way she leaned into him, whispering jokes as if I were some phantom specter haunting our gathering, struck a nerve deep within me. Just as my heart raced with determination, the moment came. An unexpected lull in conversation opened up a pocket of opportunity. I turned to David, trying to keep my tone light despite the flutter in my gut. "Tonight's all about togetherness. Let's celebrate," I said, my voice steady. "I want to hear everyone's thoughts about what it means to be family." The room turned still, eyes darting amongst one another, murmurs of uncertainty bouncing against the walls. Amelia's smile widened, but underneath it lay an edge. "Oh, come on, Helen. We already know what family is," she chimed, rolling her eyes. But I pressed on, heart pounding louder than ever. "No, really, I think sharing our perspectives can help strengthen our bonds. It's crucial we all feel heard, right?" David looked to me, almost confused yet curious. I needed to say something, anything, to redirect the tide. "You all know how special family is. It was the backbone of my life with David. I've always fought for what makes moments precious, and I hope we can continue that." Amelia shifted slightly next to David, her fidgeting contrasting with my steady resolve. "Sure, we could discuss what makes family special, but what if we also look at, say, what we could update or improve? Maybe there's stuff we should just let go," she suggested, her eyes dancing with mischief. While a knot of frustration clenched my stomach, I leaned into my breathing, steadying myself. "Letting go can be freeing," I said, "but not of those who matter most. I want to hold on to the best parts." While she grinned, I caught a glimmer of uncertainty behind her bravado as the crowd shifted back and forth. Each voice contributed to the dialogue, every comment revealing elements of perception that I keenly noted. Subtle insights about Amelia and her influence over David beginning to emerge. The evening unfolded like a masquerade. Hidden truths bubbled from corners, emotions danced, and I monitored it all. My internal compass stirred, senses sharp. The beautiful yet intricate tapestry we wove began to unravel, threads of resentment slowly loosening. As discussions delved deeper, I was prepared to confront Amelia, to name the elephant in the room. I could sense the tide turning. Hidden truths were brewing, and it was in that moment I firmly knew that this was not merely a dinner gathering. It was a battleground for reclaiming my dignity. As the conversations began to ebb and flow, laughter mingling with heartfelt confessions, I could feel an electrifying energy permeating the room. There was a thick cloud of potential that hovered over us, charged with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. I knew the time had come to shift focus. There was no backing down now. I positioned myself closer to David and Amelia, feeling the weight of every person's eyes resting upon me, unblinking, waiting for my move. The haze of cheer dissipated, and a tension twisted around the atmosphere like storm clouds gathering for release. I took a deep breath, centering my heart and gathering the courage I needed to confront the shifting tides of our family dynamics. Amelia, I began, addressing her directly. I appreciate the modern ideas you bring into our home, but I can't shake the feeling that my voice is being drowned out. I paused for what felt like an eternity, watching her smile twitch ever so slightly. There is a unique history here, a history woven from years of memories, hard work, and love. I want to ensure that it is acknowledged and respected. A silence enveloped the room, palpable and thick as the tension crackled. David's brow furrowed, and I noticed his hand squeeze Amelia's lightly, as if to offer support during the sudden exposure. But Amelia merely blinked back at me, a flicker of surprise painted across her features. "Well, Helen, I didn't mean to come off as disrespectful," she countered, her tone feigning innocence, but I saw through the facade. Sometimes with new ideas, we have to let go of the old to welcome the new. Letting go doesn't have to mean casting aside what's significant, I replied firmly, the conviction in my voice growing stronger. Traditions matter, and they have shaped us into who we are. But I fear we're on the verge of losing sight of that, all while courting newness. I took a half step closer, the rising urgency in my heart propelling me forward. It feels like my contributions are trivialized, and that hurts. It erodes the foundation we've created together. Every word I uttered became a thread of a much larger narrative within the room, weaving into the tapestry of relationships that had begun to fray. David's eyes widened, concern etching deep lines across his forehead. I didn't know you felt this way, Mom," he murmured. The sincerity in his tone washed over me, inviting a glimmer of hope to bloom within the weighty atmosphere. Amelia's laughter died abruptly, and her demeanor shifted entirely, as if someone had pulled a string loose from her charming act. The walls around her painted a facade, but now they were beginning to crack under scrutiny. "So, you're saying I'm ruining family time?" she spat, the competitive edge piercing through her practiced sweetness. "No, Amelia, I'm not saying that at all," I interjected, keeping my voice calm, striving for composure. "I'm saying we all need to feel included. A family strengthens through understanding, not alienation." Suddenly, I sensed the room shift. The weight of my words hung heavily in the air, morphing the initial cheerful atmosphere into one charged with truth. Others jumped in, offering supportive acknowledgments, sharing their own experiences and reinforcing that there was still room for traditions to live alongside new ideas. It wasn't an ultimatum being made, it was a call for inclusion, a plea for respect. Throughout the dialogue, I caught Amelia's posture stiffening. The playful glimmer in her eyes waned, making way for defensive irritation. Each passing moment heightened my pulse as I bared my heart, revealing each hidden bruise inflicted by her previous jabs. It felt liberating yet terrifying, akin to dancing on a precipice. Maybe we could celebrate the traditions together while weaving in some of the new. a family friend chimed in, reinforcing the idea of balance. Finding a middle ground might just breathe life into all of us. I nodded appreciatively, bolstered by the collective support that began to swell around me. I could see David nodding slowly, the gears in his mind turning as he took in the perspectives shared around him. The weight of silence hung heavily still, but now an air of vulnerability encircled us, ripe for real connection. In the midst of it all, I decided it was time to present my own shift, an offering to balance both worlds. How about we make our Sunday dinners a time to celebrate a blend of ideas? I asked, addressing the room. Let's celebrate traditions while inviting new ones, allowing all voices to be heard. Reclaiming these moments should be a shared effort. While I spoke, I caught Amelia's eyes flicker toward David, observing the growing tension dance between them. Was she losing her grip on him, on the influence she once held? The subtle shift in power dynamics swirled like a gust of wind through the wilting flowers of my life. With each word spoken, I could feel Amelia's composure quaking. Of course, but might I suggest certain guidelines to ensure no one feels, lost? She interjected, the feigned sweetness crackling. The truth of her words felt laced with unmistakable undertones. She still saw me as an obstacle. But bolstered by a new sense of confidence, I replied, no one needs to exist under guidelines in their own family. It should be a place of celebration and respect, not mandates. As the atmosphere thickened, surrounding us in warmth, yet fraught with tension, I locked eyes with David. His face had softened, and I felt as if I stood on the brink of everything I had desired, an understanding. I hope we can all contribute to this new narrative together as counterparts, I added, my voice steady and confident. It will take all of us to create the space where each of us can flourish. At that moment, Amelia opened her mouth to respond, but it faltered, caught on an invisible string. The room, brimming with voices, fell into a temporary hush, every gaze fixated on her, anticipation palpable as I sensed the impending response. I think perhaps we can work on that, she finally replied, her tone clipped and surprisingly restrained, the power of the collective awareness nudging her. As long as we all agree that some ideas are, better than others. Bitterness dripped from her words, but I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The landscape of our family was morphing, and within that transformation lay the promise of reclaiming my dignity, of ensuring my voice would no longer be silenced. For the first time in a long time, I felt the weight begin to lift from my heart, replaced by the invigorating warmth of possibility. We were standing on the edge of something substantial, just enough to keep pushing forward, together. The days following our impactful family gathering felt like a tightrope walk, balancing a newfound hope against the ever-present tensions that simmered just beneath the surface. Every morning, I awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, aware that the battle for my dignity was far from over. The flicker of possibility that had ignited during that dinner pushed me forward, urging me to take action. The next Sunday dinner was my opportunity to execute my plan carefully. The table was a canvas of color and warmth, adorned with vibrant flowers that reflected a hopeful spirit. The savory aroma of roast chicken filled the air, mingling with the slight scent of fresh herbs. Each detail had been methodically curated, so our environment would resonate with love and connection. As the clock inched closer to dinner time, my heart raced in anticipation. David arrived first, and I welcomed him with open arms, hoping to reinforce the bridge we had begun building. I'm so happy to see you, honey. I'm really excited about what our future gatherings can look like, I said, injecting affirmation into the air. David smiled warmly but remained cautious. I think we all want that, Mom, but let's see how tonight unfolds. he replied, glancing toward the door, almost as if wary of Amelia's entrance. The moment Amelia walked in, her presence was palpable, filling the space as if she intended to claim dominion over the room. "Wow, the spread looks incredible, Helen," she exclaimed, her voice bright yet charged with underlying malice, as though my efforts were trivial in her eyes. The dinner commenced, filled with laughter and shared stories, but I knew I needed to oversee the interaction carefully. Amelia's jabs sliced through the jovial atmosphere like ice shards, aimed to undermine my every intention. Her comments, disguised as jokes, barely concealed her disdain. "Thanks, but let's be real, Helen. How much help do you really provide these days?" she offered, feigning innocence while delivering a pointed barb. Every word stung, yet I reminded myself to maintain composure. I needed to stand my ground. "Amelia, let's focus on what we can create together, valuing each person's contribution," I asserted, revealing my confidence. As dinner progressed, I actively looked for openings, leveraging Amelia's attempts at dominance. "You remember that time last Thanksgiving when the turkey almost burned and we all banded together to save dinner?" I began, evoking laughter from David and friends. By the end, none of us had a perfect meal, but we had the best memories. The warmth in the room grew as I shared our history. My stories reframed our shared experiences, reminding everyone of the bonds we had nurtured over the years. In those moments, the pressures of Amelia's comments felt less formidable. David's tentative smile encouraged me to keep building. But just as I thought I had created the perfect pathway forward, Amelia seized on the opportunity to redirect our conversation. As dessert was served, she smiled, but her eyes glinted with mischief. "Realistically, what's your plan for future holiday traditions, Helen?" she asked pointedly, trying to entrap me into defending my position. This was my moment to clearly establish the narrative. Traditions are about family. They require everyone's involvement and respect. It's not just about one person leading. It's about weaving our unique voices into a harmonious legacy. My heart thumped in anticipation, and I sensed the tension in the air as her facade wavered. While change is necessary, it shouldn't come at the expense of what binds us. We should celebrate our history, as it defines who we are as a family, I urged, maintaining eye contact to gauge her reaction. As I spoke, I could see the shift beginning, a flicker of frustration sparking in Amelia's eyes. She opened her mouth to respond but hesitated, uncertainty flickering across her features. The room held its breath in anticipation, and for a fleeting moment, the balance of power seemed to tip in my favor. "Okay, let's see how we can work on that together," Amelia finally replied, her words tight and clipped, revealing the tension beneath her brittle exterior. "As long as we agree that some traditions need to update." David looked at her with concern, and I seized the chance for one final push. Family means learning from one another. We can blend traditions and create something beautiful, reflecting all our voices. We can reclaim these occasions by being together, truly together. A hint of relief surged within me. The atmosphere felt charged with palpable energy, not just between Amelia and me, but among everyone present. David nodded enthusiastically. "That sounds like a great plan. I'd love to see us explore each other's ideas." The enthusiasm in his voice doused my doubts. It felt like a validation of my efforts. As dinner came to an end, I raised my glass, invoking a united spirit among us. "Here's to new beginnings," I proclaimed, feeling warmth enveloping me. "Let's toast to family, love, respect, and new traditions." "Cheers!" echoed through the room, voices harmonizing together. It felt as if a gust of fresh air breathed life into our corner of the world, revitalizing the foundation of our family. At that moment, I realized that this was not merely a victory. It was a beginning, a shift toward a more cohesive narrative that celebrated growth alongside tradition. Hope bloomed in my heart as I sensed my dignity restored, woven back into the rich tapestry of our family life, not as a victim, but as a cherished architect of our shared legacy. The days after our significant dinner were filled with cautious optimism. I felt buoyed by the connection we had begun to forge, a tenuous thread of understanding linking Amelia and me. Yet, the shadows of doubt still lingered, a reminder that the path to change can be precarious. The family get-together we planned became the focal point for testing our fragile new dynamic. As I prepared the meal, sunlight streamed through the kitchen, bathing everything in warmth. The aroma of roasted vegetables mingled with fragrant herbs, transforming each dish into a work of art. Every detail was designed to foster a spirit of collaboration and community. When guests began arriving, I welcomed them with genuine smiles, hoping to keep the atmosphere light despite the underlying tensions. Amelia entered shortly after, her expression a mix of feigned warmth and calculation. "It looks lovely in here, Helen," she said, though the thin veneer of appreciation suggested an ulterior motive. Throughout the gathering, there was a sense of careful choreography between us. Conversations danced from topic to topic, with laughter punctuating the air. I watched as Amelia subtly navigated her role, weaving in thoughts and opinions as if testing the waters. Then, as we settled around the table for the meal, she took control of the conversation. "Let's talk about our holiday traditions. I think we need a competitive cooking theme this year," she announced, an edge of mischief sparkling in her eyes. Her enthusiasm felt forced and somewhat confrontational, sending a ripple of unease through the room. David shifted in his chair, immediately sensing the growing tension. My heart raced as I prepared myself for the inevitable clash. I knew I needed to counter Amelia's challenge with confidence. While competition can be fun, let's focus on working together to create something meaningful. Shared experiences will strengthen our bonds, I replied firmly, my voice steady. Amelia laughed, brushing off my words. "Oh, come on, Helen, a little friendly competition would spice things up." Her tone dripped with challenge, making it clear that her agenda was not about celebration, but rather domination. I felt the weight of everyone's gaze as the air turned thick with anticipation. I steadied myself, calling upon the mantra that had anchored me through this journey. We can reclaim what's ours, but we do it united, as a family. The room fell silent, her expression shifting from playful to uncertain. For a brief moment, the weight of my words settled over us all. "Fine, let's see how we can work on this together," Amelia finally replied, struggling for composure. "Maybe some of our old recipes could mix with new ideas." Encouraged, I pushed forward. "Yes, let's build on our traditions and make them richer. When we collaborate, we capture the essence of being a family," I said, injecting enthusiasm as I felt warmth return to the room. David nodded, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "I love that idea. Exploring our family's strengths could lead to amazing results." His agreement felt like a significant turning point, and suddenly the tension began to lift. As we shared stories, creating a framework of respect and collaboration around the table, the laughter returned, sparking connections within our family. I breathed a sigh of relief, watching Amelia's defenses ease, perhaps realizing that togetherness was nurturing rather than a battle for dominance. In that pivotal exchange, I understood that we were not merely participants but architects of our family narrative. With each shared story and every moment spent in unity, I felt my dignity restored, not just as a mother or mother-in-law, but as an integral thread in the fabric of our family's legacy. This was not just a small victory, it was a profound realization that together we could transform conflicts into opportunities for deeper connections. In that room, surrounded by loved ones, I felt the power of resilience and the importance of shared heritage. We were beginning a new chapter, one rooted firmly in love and respect, each of us reclaiming our place in the story of our family.